In today's video, we're going to be grabbing our credit card and splurging on the most expensive deck in the modern format. This is the 4-color soup pile, which is known for playing all the busted cards, but even with all these banned cards, we are playing some pretty cool one-of fun-ofs. We're playing a one of Eldame's Call, which can find Emrakul the Promising, and alongside Emrakul, we're playing Elishnorn Mother of Machines, which is a haymaker by herself, and Nissa, which is an absurdly good card advantage and great against Blood Moon. While the One Ring has been so popular from Lord of the Rings, the Lighted Halfling is also a great addition to this list. It is a mana dork that can tap for all colors and makes your stuff uncounterable, but the one drawback is that it has to cast legendary spells to make those effects. So we're going to be grabbing our credit cards and playing this deck through League of Modern to see if money can win Magic. Match 1, we're on the play and hand looks great. We'll go turn 1 Strand, fetching out a Breeding Pool, and go turn 1 Halfling. Opponent goes turn 1 Marsh into their own Halfling. We find another fetch land, we'll play it out and pass the opponent. They play out a Marsh into a wall, and they run out another Halfling into a third Halfling, and on the end step we'll find a Triome. We top deck a Binding, we'll shock in our Foundry, and play out a One Ring. And we'll use it right now to draw a card, playing around a Bowmasters. Opponent casts out an Eldritch Evolution, sacking their Wall Roots. They find a Yogmoth. They sack a Halfling, and in response we'll evoke out our Solitude, pitching a Binding, trying to kill their Yogg. And in response to this, they cast a Cord, which finds a Yogmoth. And they end up sacrificing a few things, drawing a few cards. We find another Solitude, we'll draw 2 cards off our One Ring, picking up a Wrenn and 6. So we'll play that out, take up on a Flood Strand, playing it out. They go to combat, hitting us for 1. We draw another Solitude for turn, we're going to cast out our Omnath, and we find a Teferi, so we'll play out our Flood Strand, activate our One Ring, drawing 3, and in response they flash in a Bowmasters. So in response to this, we'll fetch with our Flood Strand, picking up an Island. Ooh, and I meant to find a White Source, that's okay, so we'll just pitch out a Solitude, killing their Bowmasters, and it looks like they have another Bowmasters. So we'll down tilt with our Wrenn, killing their Bowmasters, then play out a Teferi, bouncing their Orc Army, and playing out a Halfling that we draw. They play out a Grist into another Young Wolf, and taking up with Grist. We draw a land, we'll draw 4 with our One Ring. Oh my god, we have so much stuff. We'll cast out a Leyline Binding, taking out their Grist. Then we'll cast a Prismatic Ending on one of the Young Wolves, and we'll down tick our Wrenn on their Insect, play out a Tap Stomping Ground, and play out another One Ring, and we'll draw a card with that now. One plays out a Wall of Roots into an Eldritch Evolution, sacking it. Binding Shieldred, that's actually kind of terrifying, and we're gonna lose 2 off Shieldred here. We'll lead on down ticking Wrenn on the Young Wolf, tick up with our Teferi, we'll play out our Plains, and then cast another One Ring. Then we'll play out another Halfling and hold up Reprieve Bolt, and they attack everything at our Teferi, so we'll chump block the Shieldred, bounce off our Halflings, and then we'll bolt their Young Wolf. And after combat, they play out a Bowmasters, pinging our Teferi. Ooh, here's the Nissa. Maybe this can save us. So we'll play Nissa out. Then we'll play out our Heath and fetch, grabbing a Forest. Ooh, and we do find an Omnath. And we played out drawing a card, and it's not what we needed. So we'll concede here because we're dead to both their Shieldred and their Bowmasters. We're going to bring in 2 Furies, 2 Endurances for 2 Reprieve, Elishnorn, and an Emrakul. Game 2, our 7 looks great. We'll go turn 1 Triumph. They go turn 1 Colony Garden. We find another Wrenn, and we'll play one of them out, ticking up on our land. They play a Forest into a Wall of Roots and a Halfling. We find another land. We'll fetch out a Plains and play our Teferi, and we'll bounce their Halfling. Then we will ping their plant token and pitch out a Fury, killing their Wall of Roots. They play out a Verdant into another wall, and then play out an Orcish Bowmaster, killing our Teferi. We top deck a Solitude. We will ping their Bowmasters, fetch out a Forest, and then play out a One Ring, and we'll draw a card now. Opponent plays out a Haywire Mite, and they sack it right away, killing our One Ring. They play out a Forest into a Halfling. They poke our Wrenn for 1. We draw another land. We will down tick our Wrenn, killing their artwork. We'll shock our Sacred Foundry, and then we're going to cast out our Solitude, killing the Wall of Roots. They shock an Overgrown Tomb, and then play out a Geist, casting out an Eldritch Evolution, sacking the Geist. They sack their Halfling, drawing a card, then sack their Geist, and we top deck a Bolt. So we're going to bolt their Yogmoth, and then we'll play out our Wrenn and go to down tick on the Yogg. And they do sacrifice their Geist to kill our Solitude, and we'll play our land passing. They play out a Blooming Marsh into a wall, into an Eldritch Evolution, and they do find a Shieldred, so happy we held on to Solitude, and we top deck another Solitude. So we'll just main phase this now, killing their Shieldred. They play Verdant, doing nothing, and we top deck a One Ring. We poke in for 3, cast out our One Ring, draw a card now, into a Teferi, and we'll tick up with both our walkers. They play out a Grist, they tick it up and play out a Mire. We draw an Omnath, we'll draw 2 of our One Ring, bounce their Insect with our Teferi, play out an Omnath, and they concede. So let's get on to game 3. Game 3, we're gonna have to mull our 7, and we will definitely keep this, but it's a little risky, putting back a Wrenn. They go turn 1 Tomb into Wolf. We'll fetch out a Temple Garden and go turn 1 Halfling. They play out another Overgrown Tomb into a Strangleroot. We find another land, and we'll play out our Wrenn, ticking up on our Misty. They play out a Colony Garden and attack our Wrenn for 3, and we top deck a One Wondering. We'll tick up with our Wrenn, then we'll fetch out a Forest and play out our Wondering, and we'll draw a card now. They play out an Urborg and then attack down our Wrenn. Then they cast out a Haywire Might post-combat, taking out our Wondering, and we top deck another Wondering. We'll play out a Strand, cast out a Wondering, draw a card now, and we'll pass back. And they play out a Shieldred, and on their end step, we'll cast out a Binding, taking out the Shieldred. Ooh, there's an Omnath. We'll draw 2 with our Wondering. Oh my god, we're so good. We'll play out our Omnath, we'll play out our Flood Strand, and then we'll fetch, Binding a Plains, and we'll cast out a Solitude now, killing their Strangleroot. They cast out a Cord, Binding a Yogmoth, they sack their Yogmoth. In response, we'll cast a Binding on the Yogmoth. In response to this, they sack a creature. And in response to this, they sack 2 creatures, killing our Solitude. Then they play out a Mire Passing. Find another land, we'll draw 3 with our Wondering. We'll play out a Wrenn, ticking up on a land, fetching out a Triumph, play out our Teferi, bouncing their Yogmoth, then play out our Halfling, and attacking for 4. They play a Forest into a Thoughtseize. They take our Solitude, and then play out another Yogmoth. Then they play out a Grist, killing our Omnath. They pass back to us, we will start ticking up our Walkers, draw 4 with the Wondering, cast an Ending on their Yogmoth, then down tick on the Grist, play out another Wondering, then playing out a tapped land, and attacking in for 2. They play out a Colony Garden into another Grist, and on the end step we'll cast out a Prismatic Ending, killing an Insect. We'll draw 2 more off the ring, take up with our Teferi, down tick with our Wrenn, cast out a Binding on their Grist, then we'll attack in for 2. They slam a Strangleroot, guys. They're still in this game, I guess. And they take down our Wrenn into an Eldritch Evolution. Find a Bowmaster's pinging our Teferi, and on the end step we'll flash in a Solitude, killing their Strangleroot. We find another Tef, so we'll play 1, bouncing their Bowmasters, finding the land, then we'll play another Teferi out, bouncing their army, then we'll play our Halfling, draw 3 with our Wondering, play out a land, and attacking with the team. They cast out another Bowmaster into a Halfling. Alright, so let's just Eldarmir's Call for a Fury, evoke it out, and this should be lethal. Holy grind fest. Let's get on to match 2. Match number 2, we're on the play, and our hand's just a little too weak. And our 6 is also too weak, so we're going down to 5. And our 5 looks perfect. We'll put back our Wrenn 6 and an Omnath. We'll lead on turn 1 Strand. Opponent shocks in a Blood Crypt, and we draw an Omnath, so we have nothing. They do nothing, but we top deck another Omnath. And on the end step, they flash in a Bowmasters. And opponent evokes out of Grief, and just to conceal information, I'm going to concede, and let's get on to sideboarding. We're going to bring in Elishnorn, 2 Fury, 2 Endurance, Veil Summer, and Besage for 4 Halflings, Emrakul, and 2 Reprieve. Game 2, we finally get to keep our 7. We're going to go turn 1 Misty. Opponent goes turn 1 Blood Crypt into a Thoughtseize, and they take our Wrenn 6. We top deck a Fountain, we'll play that out tapped. And we're not fetching because we were trying to play around Blood Moon as much as we can. Opponent evokes out of Grief, pitching a Dothi, and they take our Omnath and cast a Feign Death. And that takes our Pending, but we find another one. So we will play our Triumph. And they play a Swamp into a Kroxa, and we'll discard our Ending, and they attack in for 4. Oh baby, what a great draw. We'll fetch out a Island and then slam our Wondering, drawing a card now. They play out a Marsh Flats, doing nothing, and another Fury for us. So we'll draw with the Wondering, and in response they do flash in a Bowmasters, pinging us for 1. Ugh, that's a lot of lands, but sadly I think we have to fetch, shock, and play out our Fury, healing Grief and their Bowmasters, and they do have a Bolt for our Fury. Dang, and they even find a land, which means they can escape Kroxa, and they do that before combat, meaning we have to discard our Fury, and we're down to 5. In our upkeep we go down to 3, and we need to find something off the top, and that's an Omnath and 2 Leyline Bindings. We actually might win this one, crazily enough. Oh my god, we even find a Teferi. We'll play out our land, gaining 4 life, and we're gonna wait till their upkeep to gain more. So we'll fetch with our Heath, finding our Plains, and in the upkeep we will flash into Binding, taking out the Kroxa, and opponent scoops up. Let's get on to game 3. Game 3, our 7 looks great. Opponent goes turn 1 Blood Crypt into an Evoked Grief, and they take our Bolt and have a Scam effect. Hopefully we can beat a turn 1 Grief. Ooh, we do top deck a Solitude, which is a good draw, and they fire off a Thoughtseize, and I'm just gonna bet on my deck over theirs, so we're Solituding the Grief, and no land drop for them. Wow. We top deck a Fury, so we'll play out a Tap Stevens, and they find a Blackleaf Cliffs, and we find another land, and on the end step they flash in a Bowmasters, they poke in for 2, and we find a Triumph, so we'll play that. They attack in for 2, and again nothing, so we'll fetch out a Triumph and a basic Plains here, and another land for us. We'll shock in our Temple Garden and cast out a Fury, and they have a Feign Death for their Bowmasters. Opponent goes tap Blood Crypt and nothing else. We top deck an Endurance, and we're gonna hold our Heath. Opponent casts out a Spyro, discarding Magus and a Malice, and no attack, so on the end step we will flash in our Endurance, and another land for us, so we'll play one of the Mount, and they kick out a Torok, which will take our Misty. Oh my god, another land. Alright, and they play out a Pithy Needle, which will love resolve, naming the One Ring, and then shocking in a Blood Crypt, attacking in with the entire team, so we'll kill Torok and their Bowmasters. Come on, spell. Oh my goodness. Alright, well, we'll pass. They play out another Spyro, pretty insane top deck. Then they play out a Delta and attacking with the team. We'll kill their Spyro and one of their tokens. Then they fetch out a Swamp and play a Grief. Alright, well, we need top deck right now. Oh my goodness. Wow, we just drew horribly. And yeah, our opponent has us here. I guess we'll make them have it though. They play a Mount Doom and attacking with everything, and yeah, our opponent has us. So let's get on to match number 3. Match 3, we're on the draw, and our hand's pretty strong. Opponent goes turn 1 Sanctum into an Evoked Grief, taking our Reprieve, and we top deck a One Ring, we'll play out our Triumph. And it looks like we're up against Living End. They shock into Steam Vents, we find another land, we'll play out our Strand, and on the end step, they cycle an Inn into another Inn, and they play out a Forest into a Violent Outburst on our upkeep, and I'm pretty sure we have just no outs here. We find an Eldamri's Call, maybe that can help us. We'll fetch out 2 basics and play our Tef, and we'll bounce their Elephant, finding another land, and then they slam a Curator. All right, well, let's see if we can top deck something here, and they send basically everything at us. I think we have to Solitude one of these Generous Skins. Come on, One Ring, save us. And Omnath? I guess we can play out a Boseiju and play our Omnath and not be dead. Maybe we can win still. They cycle Riverwinder and then evoke out a Grief. Joke's on you, opponent. And then they attack in with the team. We'll go down to 1. Come on, One Ring. Solitude's actually pretty good. We'll play out our Heath and pass to them. We actually might win this game. And on the end step, they crack a food. They play out a Sanctum and then attack in with the team. We'll fetch, picking up a Forest, and then we'll flash in our Solitude, killing their Curator, and then we'll double block the Grief. And we top deck an Indian, we'll play out our Heath, and then attack in with Omnath. Oh god, they play out a Boseiju into an Elephant. No. Yep, and we take 5. Ooh, an Elishnorn. Wait a moment, are we actually winning this game? We'll play that out and play out a tapped land. And I think we attack in with our Omnath, as weird as that seems. And they attack in with both, and we'll block with our Elishnorn. And we're down to 2, but we're still alive. And they concede the game. Oh my god. And this just makes up for the last game. I don't know how we won this. We were so lucky. But anyways, let's get on to sideboarding. We're bringing in all these great hate pieces and taking out all the removal spells. Game 2, we'll keep our 7. They evoke out a Grief on turn 0, taking our Dovin's Veto. We top deck a land, we'll play out our Triumph. And on our end step, they cycle an Elephant. They play a tap Steam Vents, and we draw a land. And they main phase a Shardless, which there's nothing we can do about. And they take our Endurance. Ooh, that is a great card. We'll shock in our Steam Vents and play out Nissa. They main phase cycle an Int, picking up a Forest. And they attack in with the team, and we have no blocks. We draw another fetch land, we'll play out our Heath, fetching right away, picking up a Forest. And we do grab an Omnath, so we'll slam our One Ring. Hopefully this resolves. And this makes a Mystical Dispute. All right, well, let's get on to game number 3. Game 3, our hand's a little too slow for my liking, so we'll mull. And our 6 is way better. We'll put back a Sacred Foundry. We'll go turn 1 Garden and play out a Halfling. And they go turn 1 Breeding Pool into a Cycle Curator and cycle a Wraith, but no Grief, so we get to go turn 2 Teferi. And they scoop it up there. Let's get on to match number 4. Match 4 on the draw, and our hand's a keep. And opponent goes turn 1 Forest into a Grazier off of a Windswept Heath, which is interesting. And they put in a Triumph. We top deck a Breeding Pool. We'll shock that in and play out a Halfling. And they play out a Written 6. And they play out a Valakut. We top deck a Solitude. We'll play out one of our fetches. Opponent plays out a Dryad into a Valakut and a fetch land. So on our end step, we will Boseiju their Dryad and then fetch out a Triumph. We top deck another Solitude. We will play out our Strand. That's shocking out a Steam Vents, and then we'll play out our Omnath. Drawing into a Binding. They play out a land into a Bring Delight, and they play a Scapeshift, so we'll make sure they have enough mountains to do this. Yep, and they definitely do, so let's get on to sideboarding. We're going to bring in 2 Vetoes and an Elishnorn for 2 Solitude and a Lightning Bolt. Game 2, our starter has turn 2 Teferi, so we gotta keep. We'll go turn 1 Forest into a Halfling. They go turn 1 Triumph, we'll shock in a Steam Vents, and play out our Teferi, and we'll just tick up. I'm gonna place a Heath doing nothing, so we'll fetch out, guess just a basic Plains, and slam our One Ring. We'll draw a card now, then down tick on nothing, draw another. Opponent shocks in a Temple Garden, slamming a Teferi, bouncing our One Ring. We find a Solitude, we took up Teferi, and kill theirs. Then we'll shock in a Breeding Pool, playing out a One Ring, drawing a card now. Opponent plays out an EI, exiling a Grazer, putting in a Valakut, into a Misty. Find a land, we'll draw 2 with the One Ring. Finding an Omnath, which we will slam. We'll shock in a Temple Gardens, and we drew into an island, holding up our Dovin's Veto. Opponent plays out their own Teferi, which we will veto. They play a Plains into a Dryad. They bolt our Teferi. We find a Binding, we'll tick up our Teferi, draw 3 with the One Ring, and we have so much to do. We'll play out a fetch land, fetching right away, picking up a Triumph. We'll cast out another Halfling, then cast a Leyline Binding, trying to take out their Dryad. In response, they fetch, killing our Teferi. Then we'll play out our Teferi, then finishing off with tacking in for 4 and taking up our Tef. Opponent plays out a Written 6, taking up, picking up a Misty. And they have a Scapeshift, which I don't think we have any answers to, so we gotta cycle our Triumph, and we find a Binding, but that's not gonna help us here. And they find enough mountains and Valakuts to absolutely destroy it. So let's get on to match number 5. Match number 5, our hand looks fantastic. Opponent goes Blackleaf Lifts into a Swift Spear. Interesting. Gonna assume this is some sort of burn. We top deck a Prismatic Ending, and we're just gonna fetch out a basic Plains, casting an Ending, killing the Swift Spear. Opponent plays out a Scalding Tarn. We're just gonna play Boseiju that we drew into a Halfling. And on our end step, they fetch shock Searing Blazing our Halfling, so this must be some weird burnless. They play a Mountain into a Bump in the Night, and we find a Strand, so we'll shock in our Breeding Pool and play out our Teferi. Wow, in response, they flash in a Bowmaster. So we'll down down tick on the Orc army. Ooh, One Ring. Don't mind if I do. Oh my god, I didn't. I'm so dumb. I should have bounced the Bowmasters or even kill it with a Solitude before that trigger. They cast a Skullcrack into a Lightning Bolt, and we're going down to 1. And I just completely messed this game up. That's okay. We'll have to evoke out our Solitude to kill the Bowmasters. But their last card is a land, so maybe we have a chance. Another land for us. We'll play out a Missa into one of our lands. Oh, and they've top deck a Bowmasters killing us. So let's get on to sideboarding. We're going to take out Emrakul for 1 rings and 2 endings for Furies, Chalice, and Vetoes. Our hand for game 2 is a little too slow, so we'll. And this looks much better. We'll put back an Elishnorn. We'll go turn 1 tap Foundry. They go turn 1 Cliffs into a Goblin Guide. Revealing a Wrenn. Oh, let's go. We'll fetch out a Forest and play a Wrenn. They have a Roiling Vortex. And I'm going to pitch cast my Solitude in response, getting rid of an ending to get rid of their Goblin Guide. We top deck a Fury. We'll fetch out a Triumph. Cast our Binding, taking out their Roiling Vortex, and taking up on our land. An opponent has another Vortex, and we top deck a Chalice. We'll fetch out another Triumph, tick up on our land, and slam a Chalice on 1. Opponent misses their land drop. We will play out our Misty, fetch down an island, then play out our Fury. And unfortunately, they do have a Searing Blaze, so we'll just tick up our Wrenn. They play out a land into a Skullcrack, and we top deck another Chalice. We will ult our Wrenn, and then play out a Wrenn, then down tick on the opponent, playing our land as well. They play out a Canopy, cracking it. Finally, we find a Solitude. That's a good draw. Then we'll tick up with our Wrenn. Oh, on the end step, they flash into Bowmasters, pinging us for 1. Wow, and no attacks from the opponent. So on the end step, we will flash in our Solitude. And they do have a Searing Blaze on our end step, which means that we have 0 outs here because we're going to die to the Vortex and the upkeep. So we end up having a negative record with the money pile. I will say after playing a league with this deck, there are a lot of changes I would make to this list. I was not terribly impressed with the Delighted Halflings, nor with the really high curve or the One Ring, so that was just me. But anyways, I hope you all enjoyed the video. Please consider leaving a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video.